Left of the box.
But I've always kind of had a thing for Canada because it's like right there,
Hmm.
and most people don't know anything about it. So I always wanted to kind of know a bit about Canada, and I would, pay attention to politics in Canada and stuff like
Hmm.
that a little bit.
Yeah, well, I think it's important for, at least countries that are bordering each other to know
Exactly.
a little bit about each other. Because, like, if you go over to Europe and you ask somebody in France about the countries around them, they're going to
Yeah.
know. But so many Americans don't even know what's on the other side of the border, yet I find that so odd because of how entwined our economies, our culture, like everything is. Like
Yeah.
Americans don't understand how connected we are and why it matters and stuff. And that's why I think there should be more cross-border solidarity on the left, which is something I'm trying to go for. So,
I
um,
agree. I remember I was in the Middle East for a time, and there were some guys from Toronto there, and we were talking politics and stuff, and they were just talking all about American politics, and I was like, I want to talk about Canadian politics, and they're like, well, let's talk about American politics. That's more exciting.
yeah, unfortunately, Canadians tend to know more about American politics than Canadian politics. Partly because it's more exciting. And a lot of Canadians seem to think it doesn't affect us too much, so it's more like just watching the show. But they don't
Mm,
realize how badly it does affect us and why we should be paying attention. But also, it's just we get a lot of our media, online, network, like all of it, a lot of our media is from the States. So we tend to see it like in the movies and the TV shows, online personalities, influencers, all that. Because there's not too many like Canadian TV shows that actually, um, what's the word when they showcase Canadian
mm,
cities and stuff. Uh, and there's not even a lot of movies that showcase Canadian cities or history or political dealings and names of politicians. And unless you're like really plugged into the news and the political news, you really don't even know what the politicians are up to.
and that's a shame because damn near all the shows and movies are filmed in Canada.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell when it's Canada. I'm like, "That's, Canada, dude, stop it." Like,
Yeah.
nowhere in America looks like that. There's no fences. That's Canada.
Yeah. It's frustrating though, because like a lot of there's movies about American history, and true, a lot of them are whitewashed. But you do get a sense of certain events that happened, and as movies are becoming more modern and up to date with actual facts, you're starting to see that. So a lot of American history is actually taught through the movies and entertainment that you guys have.
Right.
We don't have that, where there's so many fascinating and rich stories that we could be telling through movies that would be interesting. But then it's always like, oh, but would it appeal to American audience? Because that's where the market is and stuff. And
Right.
it's like, if you tell the story right and make it intriguing enough, then yeah, why not?
There should be a Canadian Hollywood because, like I
Hmm.
said, in Vancouver and Toronto, like all these places, they're filming everything.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a shame that there's not more Canadian stories being told. Um, I remember, like, there's a lot of Canadian artists that I like music wise, like a lot. But I was at a show and a guy, he was like a techno artist, and he's underneath his track, he was playing. There was like a voice, and they were speaking, and when I like listened to it, I could hear that it's like a woman talking about her experience at a residential school. And so after the show, I was like, "Hey, like, what was up with that track?" Like, he was like, "Oh, that was my grandmother actually talking about it."
Hmm.
And like a story like that, I mean, that translates, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, yeah,
No, there's like just so many interesting historical things that have happened to this country that, could be made into more than a Canadian heritage moment,
hmm,
which is our propaganda commercials that we have. It's a real thing. Canadian heritage moments. They're like
that's funny.
commercials that a piece of our heritage, and it shows a very whitewashed version of something that Canada invented basketball, or helped to invent the phone with Bell, which we're going to get into in a little bit.
Uh-oh.
Also, how Canada was founded and all this sort of stuff, or the Underground Railroad that they love to brag about. We had the Underground Railroad in Canada and stuff, but they tend to neglect that before that there was slavery in Canada. Although
Yeah,
they like to let it have a pass because Canada wasn't officially a country at that point. We were still,
yeah,
part of, but, so it was abolished before Canada was officially a country. So then they tend to say, oh, yeah, there was no slavery in Canada. But it's not even so much like they don't outright lie for the most part. They just don't mention there was.
mm. You know what? I'm gonna let that slide. Since it wasn't a country this month, I'm gonna let it slide. Canada, you never had slavery.
Horrible stuff.